Right, so the sun has finally come out, the weather's got a little bit better, and all the carp have decided they finally want to have a feed, and they're all swimming around on the top. So we thought it'd be the perfect opportunity today to just do a bit of a different video, talk about rigs and a bit more technicality for each subject. We're going to get a few done today, hopefully, but firstly, I want to focus on carp shallow fishing. You know what I mean? Now is the time. Hopefully you're watching this in the height of the summer when it's all lovely. And yeah, now's the time where we can catch some carp on a variety of different rigs. And I just want to talk through my way of thinking about what each rig that I choose to do for carp shallow fishing does, sort of thing. So yeah, we're going to waffle straight into it, and I'm going to break it down into two ways. I mean, carp, really, really simple when it comes to catching them. You're either catching them within feed or you're catching them without feeding anything. I mean, mugging, dobbing, whatever you want to call it. So very much you need two rigs for doing, or several rigs for doing, two different things. So firstly, I'm going to focus on the mugging, dobbing, swinging, whatever you want to call it, where I'm often presenting a bait to the fish without feeding. I mean, really, really important way of fishing during the summer months that, I mean, it accounts for so many big, massive, wary fish that simply don't want to feed for a big period of the match. So, mugging rigs or dobbing rigs, really, really, really simple when it comes to this, and I'll employ two. Yeah, and the key thing that I'm focusing on is the splash of the bait, or the noise of your bait and rig, and what effect it has on the fish. Yeah, they work in two ways. 9 times out of 10, they don't like any noise, but quite often they like a bit of or sometimes they want a bit of a splash, and that can lead to getting a few more bites. All depends on the venue, pressure, all that sort of thing. But my two rigs both work in those two different ways. One makes a lot of noise, it's very positive, very heavy, very direct, and the other one is very, very, very subtle, and they both incorporate dibbers. I mean, huge fan these days of whenever a lot of my carp fishing is for anything above, 2 foot deep, I'm going to say, or whenever I'm mugging, dobbing features, a dibber is my go-to, just because of the robustness and the nature of carp fishing as well. Big carp, you very rarely suffer the problem of repeated missed bites like you do with F1 fishing. I mean, carp are big daft, they're me in fish form. They'll eat it and they swim off with it. They're not messing about. So, first rigs first. Really, really simple. This is my light, subtle, no fuss mugging rig. The one that the key thing that I'm after is my bait to impart the most attraction to my float. I mean, so when I actually flick this over, slapping in, whatever else, my bait is making more noise than the rest of my rig put together, because it goes in with a bit more of a plop than my float's going to. So what we've got is a really, really lovely little small float on that. That is one of the 0.1 dibbers. I mean, the lightest float that we do in the dibber range, but still, it's buoyant enough, heavy enough, robust enough to be able to put a decent bait on. So I can fish that little 0.1 dibber with very, very, very little shot. Literally in today's case, because I'm going to fish quite big pellets, I'm going to fish 6mm Coppens type pellets, maybe even an 8. I mean, a decent weight of hook bait. I can literally shot that with a number 10 and a number 11 bolt together right under my float. And whatever depth I fish, that's going to stay under my float. So really, really important as well. I use the cube type shot for that because I can move them easy. You find that with shot, they just don't move as nice, simple as. Cube weights move far more easy. So if I want to move this up to 2 foot, then I can easily move my bulk, no damage on my line. Nice and simple. But as you can see, that's how we've got it set now, the depth I want to fish. Little tip, best depth in the world if fishery allow you to fish at that depth is 2 bait boxes deep. So I'll often have 2 bait boxes, or you always will have loads of bait boxes. 2 bait boxes, that is the optimum mugging depth, but that's for another story. But yeah, I've got him set. 0.1 dibber, really simple. All the shot directly under the float, because it's all about the lovely, sexy fall of that bait, and it's never falling far enough to sort of lose it with too much line. I mean, the deepest I'm going to go is 2 foot, so I'm always in contact with that bait. Components-wise, elastic, I'm not going to touch on that today, because that's suited to the venue. All venues are different, but generally for me, it's 1.8, 2 mil, maybe even 2.2 mil slick, depending how angry it is, but suit that to your venue. Mainline's really robust, 018. Every single mainline I've got is 018, unless I need a special rig for a horrible, nasty venue, and I might make some up on 020. But 9 times out of 10, 018 doesn't get affected too much by the wind. And again, hook length material, that needs to be suited to the venue. So today here at Western Bulls on the clay pit, they pull a bit, but I'm going to catch some F1s as well. So what I've got here is a 6-inch. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to choose a 6-inch because I want that really slow fall. It's not like F1 fishing where I need a bulk really, really close to hook length to amplify bites, show things up, get them to the bolt rig effect sort of thing. With carp, it's different. I mean, I want that lovely, natural, slow fall on my pellet that they're going to intercept as it's sinking in front of them, just looks more natural. So 6 inch, in today's case I've got 016 on, yeah, hoping to catch a few big ones, and I've got, for this rig, because it's my light little subtle rig, I've got a slightly lighter hook. I've got a 16 MXC6 on that, which just isn't quite as heavy as the usual MXC3s that I'd use, that have a bit more weight to make it sink a bit faster. So this is all about subtlety, sexy, nice slow fall, almost sneaking it in. I mean, you often find that you don't even slap with this rig. It's a ploppy, subtly type rig for catching them weary fish, particularly on days like this, when it's flat calm and they can see everything that's going on. So, subtle rig covered. Next, I want to go to something a little bit more positive. I mean, that rig's great when it's flat calm, perfect, the fish want to be moody, but on other days when there's more wind, I need to be more direct. I may need to make more noise, hopefully, if them fish want to come and intercept the pellet because they're hearing it going in. Next, I'm going to go to me plopper type rig that we call it, the one that's going to make some noise, very, very direct, and exactly the same as the other one, but all I have is this is a 0.3 float. So I swap to a much more heavy, much more bulky, much more buoyant dibber that I can still use great big baits on, that happily can support a flipping 11mm pellet if I want. But what this one is going to do, it's going to give me a great big lump of weight at the bottom there. You can see I've got a bulk of 4 number 8 cubes underneath that again can be moved if I want to make it any deeper, any shallower, or whatever else. But it allows me to create a lovely tight line, a lovely direct rig. This is great for venues sort of like the glebe, where I need to swing my rig. I can't turn it over, and I need to be very accurate towards swinging it to fish, or I want to swing it to features, whatever else. It just gives me a lot more weight, a lot more plop, a lot more noise that makes things happen, a lot more of a direct rig. But as I say, it can, on many, many occasions, when the fish are moody like they could be today, that extra noise that your float creates, the bulk creates, can definitely put fish off. So I've got both the best of both worlds covered. So really, really easy. Say components are exactly the same, 018 mainline, exactly the same 6-inch hook length on this to exactly the same hook. I'm telling lies, I've swapped that one to a 16 MXC3. So this is a bit more angry, a bit more positive. So I've gone to a heavier hook that can allow me to pull a little bit harder if I need to. But really, really simple when it comes to mugging. And those floats, both in a 0.1 and a 0.3, tend to be what I use for all me non-feeding options. So when it comes to feeding, which is the next step, again, 2 ways it's going to work. I may often start as a bit of a tippy thing before we talk about the rigs. Start feeding and use a mugging rig around it. Often be a great way of catching fish. But what you don't have then is the ability to turn it over as much because I've got such a long length of line, and you also don't have the directness that you'd have by having a few shot down your line showing the bites up if you want to go deeper. So if I want to fish within a feed area when I'm fishing shallow for carp, again, 2 rigs are the option. Firstly, the slapper. Yeah, really, really popular way of fishing. It may be that I use this one without feed even. I mean, it could be used as an additional mugging type rig if you just want to slap in a spot. And what this one has is a much shorter length of line, so the whole rig is only actually about 3.5 foot, and that allows me to fish anywhere from, what we're going to say, 18 inch to 2.5 foot. Yeah, 18 inch, 2.5 foot, and I can slap my rig over. Do you know what I mean? A very, very popular method these days, just turning that rig over, making lots of noise on a spot without being able to visually see fish swimming in the area. I mean, they come to the plop sort of thing, as we call it. So by having a rig, you can make a lot of commotion on the water if you're allowed at the venue. This is the rig for that. And I go a little bit lighter. With this one, I've gone with a 0.2 float because I still want a little bit of shot down the line. So a 0.3 can be a little bit heavy for me because I don't want to bulk. I don't want too much weight actually directly under the float. So for all my slapping, when I'm going to slap with a 6 or 8mm pellet, I'm going to choose a 0.2 dibber. So you can see I'm a massive, massive fan of dibbers when it comes to carp shallow fishing. But for this one, it's a 0.2 dibber, shotted a little bit different. I've just actually moved this one about, so let me just move in. This one's a bit of a slow fall sort of job. I mean, I'm going to have the noise of the pellet. The pellet's still going to be the largest, the most vivid noise that's occurring in my peg, because I've not got a bulk of shot to create another plop, because I don't want to bulk, because I believe it pulls my pellets down a little bit unnaturally. So in this case, same hook length again, all materials are the same, 018 to 016 we've got on. With that one, again, I've got an MXC3 hook, bit of a heavier gauge wire in a 16, and that needs to be matched to your bait as well. I mean, I tend to go with a 16 for 6mm pellets and a 14 for 8mm pellets. I mean, it depends on it, just so it's proportional to my hook. 6-inch hook length, exactly the same again for that nice little slow fall, but this one just has 3 number 10 spread out throughout the rig. Whatever depth I'm fishing, I'll spread them out evenly. First one on top of my hook length, and then just spread them, in today's case, for fishing at what, 2.5 foot. I've got them about 5 inches apart. Keeps things really simple. It's not interfering with the fall of my pellet too much, and it's not creating that additional plop to make it a bit nasty. So 3 number 10s with a 0.3 float, but then underneath my float as well, that's just to make it turn over a little bit quicker, so I'm fishing instantly. So with carp, because of how quickly they come into your bait, I don't want my float to lay flat for a second. I want it to be cocking and just breaking that surface tension immediately. That with carbon floats, you can often get them just holding up for a fraction. So by getting rid of that completely, I've got a number 10 and a number 11 there directly under my float, which is just going to allow to turn that float over quickly, so I'm direct with it. I'm watching my bait go down, and as it sinks, I can see any bites that are happening within that quick, what we're going to say, 2.5 foot in today's case, in my attraction area when I'm slapping my rig over all the time. And then lastly, in fact, with this one, as I said, my rig's 3.5 foot long on this one, so I'm restricted to fishing it, I'm going to say 2.5 foot. Yeah, 2.5 for a dibber, I'd say 2.5 foot, about the most I'm going to go, because it is so quick. I mean, the bites happen so fast, there's no reading of your bristles. I mean, you're not going to see indications and change your depth. I mean, carp do not mess about when they're fishing in that, when they're feeding in that really shallow water. They do, however, I'm not going to say mess about, but you need to read your bristle and be able to see indications if you go any deeper. So today, perfect example of that. It's about 300 million foot deep out there. So what I may need to do is go a little bit deeper, which can happen at venues such as Hayfield, the Glebe here. So not so much the Glebe because of the way you've got to fish your rig, but very much Hayfield in this place, deeper carp venues. What I might need to do is fish a bristled float. So I'll swap in that range to our carp shallow floats. So it's what we've got when I need to fish a bristle for anything a bit deeper. I mean, as soon as I exceed that 2.5 foot depth that I want to suspend my bait at, I may want to read a bristle. I just find it easier to see if things are going on. It might tell me that I need to change to my dibber and fish above it, but I need a bristle. I'm more confident with a bristle being able to read that bait. So in this case, when I've gone today, say that's probably fishing at 3.5 foot, 3 foot, my rig's probably nearly 5 foot in this case. It gives me more options of fishing below where I'm fishing on my dibber rigs, if that makes sense. So what we got is a 0.3 version of the shallow float. Yeah, nice and heavy, gives me a bit of shot to play with down the bottom end, and it's shotted exactly the same as the dibber. So all I'm losing with this is because of the length of it, it's not as nice for slapping and making a noise. I mean, I'm not trying to catch fish really, really shallow with this rig. I'm kind of trying to catch them a lot more down the bottom end. I mean, 3.5 foot plus when they're feeding in that clever depth where they're very, very tricky to catch at. That's what this rig's going to do, and it has to be laid in a very specific way. It has to be flicked in and held on a tight line at all times, so I can read it very, very similar to what you would with F1s, and that is why the shot in is the way it is, to create that lovely slow fall of my rig all the way through, but keeping in touch with my bait. So with this one, again, components are all the same. All I've changed with this is a 4-inch hook length, because I may need to put that last number 10 shot a little bit closer to the hook in this case, because there's a chance you could have a few suck it and spit it, because they are actually feeding within your bait when you're at this depth. So bringing one shot a little bit closer, I'm just going to bring that one down again. So you can see 0.3, shotted exactly the same as my dibber is, for me slapping rig for fishing a lot shallower, in that I've got a number 10, probably 6 inches away, another number 10, 6 inches away, another number 10, a little bit further spacing between my shot because of the increase in depth. I mean, really, really simple, no mucking about. So you can say I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 number 10s there, and again, I've got a number 10 and a number 11 directly under my flow. Yeah, what I may need to do with this, depending on my bait, because it's a bristle, it's not got the buoyancy that a dibber has. I mean, it naturally not gonna. We've got quite a nice, delicate bristle on them as well. So what I'll do is with a 6mm pellet, I've got a 10 and an 11 cube right underneath my float. If I want to put an 8mm on, I'll just ping that number 11 off. It just gives a bit more bristle to see. Just makes it a bit more versatile, which with bristled floats can be the downfall. So again, components are all the same. 018 to 016 on that one, and with this one it's the only rig out of all the ones I've shown you that have a back shot. I mean, really, really important on this to have a back shot, just so I can maintain a tight line. So you're going to see as I slap my rig over, I hold that line tight, and it just lets you get in contact with them bites as quickly as possible. I mean, having no slack line between my bristle and me end of my pole just means I hook a few more of them nasty, quick biting fish that tend to happen as soon as you go a little bit deeper. So yeah, that's the basics of it. those 4 rigs, all the components, they're pretty much all I need for all my shallow fishing to keep things as simple as possible, but also having a versatility of rigs to get job done depending what the moody fish want to do on the day.